This is the image they said we would never see. For 3 years, Donald Trump has operated with the confidence of a man who believes his inner circle is unbreakable. Loyalty bought with pardons, sealed with NDAs, and enforced through the threat of political and financial destruction. But this morning, Tuesday, February 3rd, 2026, at 6:47 a.m. Eastern, that fortress of silence just collapsed. Breaking news out of Washington has sent shockwaves through the Department of Justice, the White House, and the entire Republican establishment. Mark Meadows, the former White House chief of staff and Trump's most trusted confidant, has just filed a comprehensive cooperation agreement with Special Prosecutor Jack Smith. This isn't just another plea deal. This isn't just another former aide turning state's evidence. This is a thermonuclear detonation at the heart of the Trump legal empire. Sources inside the Department of Justice tell us that Meadows has provided over 14,000 pages of documents, 847 hours of recorded conversations, and detailed testimony covering a sprawling conspiracy that reaches from the January 6th planning sessions all the way to classified document storage at Mar-a-Lago. We are talking about contemporaneous notes from Oval Office meetings. We are talking about encrypted signal messages between Trump and his inner circle. We are talking about financial records showing $47.2 million in unreported campaign contributions funneled through shell companies. The legal avalanche that's about to hit the former president makes every previous investigation look like a parking ticket. For the first time in American history, a sitting president faces simultaneous federal indictments for seditious conspiracy, espionage, money laundering, and racketeering. And the evidence isn't coming from his enemies. It's coming from the man who stood next to him in the Oval Office for 4 years. Buckle up. The Republic is about to face its ultimate stress test. To understand why Mark Meadows flipped now, we have to go back to Saturday, January 31st, 2026, 11:30 p.m. That's when federal agents executed a pre-dawn raid on Meadows' $3.2 million estate in South Carolina. According to leaked FBI affidavits obtained by Politico, the raid wasn't fishing expedition. It was the culmination of an 18-month investigation triggered by a whistleblower inside the Treasury Department. The whistleblower, identified in court documents only as Financial Intelligence Unit Officer 7, had flagged a series of suspicious activity reports showing massive cash transfers between Trump-affiliated LLCs and offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands. The amounts are staggering. $23.7 million moved through Bedminster Holdings LLC, $18.4 million through Mar-a-Lago Management Corporation, and $12.8 million through a previously unknown entity called American Victory Fund, Inc. But here's where it gets interesting. The Treasury data showed these transfers weren't random. They were timed to coincide exactly with key dates in the classified documents case. Every time Trump's legal team received a new subpoena or search warrant, money moved. When the FBI searched Mar-a-Lago on August 8, 2022, $4.7 million was wired to Grand Cayman 72 hours later. When Trump received a target letter in the documents case on July 18, 2023, another $6.2 million disappeared into an untraceable cryptocurrency wallet. The pattern was so obvious that even basic algorithmic analysis flagged it for human review. This is what financial investigators call consciousness of guilt transactions. You only move money like this when you know the walls are closing in. The raid on Meadows' house wasn't looking for documents. According to sources familiar with the operation, they were looking for hardware. Specifically, they were looking for the encrypted phones and laptops that Meadows used to coordinate what prosecutors are now calling Operation Clean Sweep, a systematic effort to destroy evidence and intimidate witnesses across multiple federal investigations. What they found was the intelligence goldmine that makes the Pentagon Papers look like a grocery list. In Meadows' home office safe, agents discovered 4 Samsung Galaxy S23 phones, each using military-grade encryption software normally reserved for CIA operations. The phones contained a complete archive of the Trump Inner Circle's communications from January 2021 through December 2025. We're talking about real-time coordination of witness tampering efforts. We're talking about detailed financial arrangements to pay hush money to potential cooperators. We're talking about explicit discussions of classified document destruction and the systematic obstruction of federal investigations. But the most damaging evidence wasn't digital. Hidden in a climate-controlled basement vault, agents found physical documents that Trump's lawyers have spent years claiming don't exist. According to the FBI inventory list, these include 47 original top-secret SCI documents related to nuclear weapons capabilities, 23 human intelligence source reports that were never returned to the CIA, and 12 National Security Agency intercepts that reveal ongoing surveillance of foreign leaders. But here's the smoking gun. Each document was annotated in Trump's handwriting with notes about their potential value for future negotiations. One document, a classified briefing on Chinese military capabilities, has a handwritten note in Trump's distinctive marker scrawl. Xi would pay $50 for this, discussed with MBS. Another, containing details about Ukrainian resistance operations, is marked Putin leverage, hold for 2024. These aren't just classified documents that were accidentally retained. These are classified documents that were systematically cataloged as bargaining chips in future diplomatic or financial negotiations. The moment Meadows' lawyers saw the evidence lineup, they knew their client was facing a life sentence. Under the Espionage Act, each classified document carries a potential 10-year penalty. With 82 documents in Meadows' possession, he was looking at 820 years in federal prison. But the RICO charges were even worse. Under the federal racketeering statute, anyone who participates in an ongoing criminal enterprise can be held liable for every crime committed by that enterprise. Meadows wasn't just facing charges for the documents in his safe, he was facing charges for every illegal act committed by the Trump Organization since January 2021. The witness tampering, the hush money payments, the obstruction of justice, the campaign finance violations, and the seditious conspiracy charges related to January 6th. Legal experts estimate his total criminal exposure at over 2,300 years in federal prison. Faced with that mathematical reality, Meadows' defense team, led by white-collar criminal defense specialist Susan Hennessy, made a calculated decision. They would flip completely, hold nothing back, and hope that total cooperation could reduce their client's sentence to something approaching survivable. The cooperation agreement, filed under seal in the D.C. District Court at 6:47 a.m. this morning, is the most comprehensive defendant flip in modern legal history. But here's where the constitutional crisis begins. Mark Meadows wasn't just Trump's chief of staff. Under the federal government's continuity of operations protocols, he held one of the highest security clearances in the American government. He had daily access to the president's daily brief, real-time intelligence updates from all 17 intelligence agencies, and direct communication channels with foreign governments and military commanders. The evidence he's providing doesn't just implicate Trump in garden-variety crimes, it implicates him in what prosecutors are calling a systematic betrayal of national security for personal financial gain. According to leaked portions of Meadows' proffer session, Trump used classified intelligence as currency in a global influence peddling operation that dwarfs anything in American political history. The scope is breathtaking. $127 million in payments from Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman in exchange for classified military intelligence about Iranian capabilities, $89 million from Russian oligarchs for NSA intercepts of Ukrainian military communications, and $156 million from Chinese state-controlled corporations for CIA human intelligence reports on Taiwan's defense preparations. But the most shocking revelation isn't the money, it's the timeline. According to Meadows' testimony, these transactions didn't stop when Trump left office. They accelerated. The former president has been operating as an unregistered foreign agent since January 20th, 2021, selling American state secrets to the highest bidders while simultaneously campaigning for a return to the presidency. The psychological profile emerging from Meadows' debriefings reveals a man consumed by a pathological need for financial validation. Trump, according to his former chief of staff, viewed the presidency not as a public trust, but as the ultimate business opportunity. Every classified briefing was evaluated for its potential market value. Every diplomatic relationship was assessed for its monetization potential. Every state secret was categorized as either leverage or inventory for future sale. Dr. Mary Trump, a clinical psychologist and the former president's niece, has described this behavior as malignant narcissism escalated to the level of national security threat. The former president's psychological makeup, according to Meadows' account, made it impossible for him to distinguish between personal property and state secrets. In his mind, anything he learned as president belonged to him permanently. This explains why he fought so aggressively to retain classified documents after leaving office. It wasn't ideological, it wasn't sentimental, it was purely transactional. Those documents represented hundreds of millions of dollars in potential revenue from foreign governments desperate for American intelligence. The presidency, in Trump's psychological framework, was simply the world's most exclusive insider trading opportunity. Sources inside the White House describe the current mood as apocalyptic panic. Trump, according to multiple aides who spoke on condition of anonymity, spent Monday night screaming at his lawyers, demanding that they find a way to stop Meadows from testifying. The legal reality, however, is that there's nothing they can do. Once a cooperation agreement is filed with the court, it becomes legally binding. Meadows is now under federal protection, with a full U.S. Marshal security detail and round-the-clock legal supervision by the Special Prosecutor's Office. Any attempt to contact him directly would constitute witness tampering, a federal felony that carries its own 20-year sentence. But Trump's psychological state is described by those close to him as beyond desperate. He reportedly spent Tuesday morning calling Republican senators, demanding that they invoke emergency powers to shut down the special prosecutor's investigation. According to Senator Lindsey Graham's office, Trump called him 6 times before 9 a.m., alternating between threats and pleading. The former president allegedly told Graham, "If you don't stop this, they're going to destroy everything. The party, the movement, everything we built. Meadows knows where all the bodies are buried." Graham's response, according to sources, was blunt. "Mr. President, maybe you shouldn't have buried so many bodies." The financial implications of Meadows' flip extend far beyond legal fees. According to forensic accountants working with the Special Prosecutor's Office, the money laundering charges alone could trigger civil asset forfeiture proceedings against the entire Trump organization. Under federal law, any property used to facilitate money laundering can be seized by the government, regardless of who technically owns it. This means every Trump property, every bank account, every business asset, and every investment vehicle could be subject to immediate seizure. The total value at risk is estimated at $3.7 billion, representing the complete liquidation of the Trump financial empire. But the psychological impact on Trump himself is even more devastating. For a man who has spent his entire adult life defining himself through his wealth and property ownership, the prospect of losing everything represents what psychologists call ego death, the complete collapse of his sense of identity and self-worth. Sources describe him as oscillating between rage and catatonic despair, unable to process the magnitude of his exposure. But here's where it gets worse. The evidence Meadows provided doesn't just implicate Trump. It implicates dozens of Republican officials who received classified information through back channels and then used that information for their own political and financial benefit. According to leaked portions of Meadows' testimony, a systematic intelligence sharing network was established between the Trump White House and Republican governors, senators, and major donors. Classified briefings on terrorist threats were shared with Republican governors before Democratic governors. Economic intelligence about foreign markets was provided to Republican donors before it was released publicly. Military intelligence about Chinese capabilities was shared with defense contractors who then received billions in Pentagon contracts. The scope of this intelligence breach is so vast that it could trigger a complete reorganization of how classified information is handled across the federal government. More immediately, it could trigger criminal investigations of every Republican official who received and acted upon this illegally shared intelligence. The political implications are staggering. If even half of Meadows' allegations are corroborated, the Republican Party could face a systemic collapse as dozens of elected officials face federal indictments for espionage-related charges. The international implications of Meadows' revelations have already triggered emergency sessions in NATO headquarters and allied intelligence services worldwide. According to diplomatic sources, the evidence suggests that Trump's intelligence selling operation compromised ongoing military operations in Ukraine, exposed NATO surveillance capabilities to Russian intelligence, and provided Chinese military planners with detailed knowledge of American defense strategies. The damage assessment currently being conducted by the Defense Intelligence Agency is expected to show intelligence compromises on a scale not seen since the Aldrich Ames and Robert Hanssen spy cases. But those were single agents selling secrets for money. This was the former president of the United States systematically monetizing the entire American intelligence apparatus. Foreign allies are quietly beginning to reassess their intelligence sharing agreements with the United States. If a former president can sell state secrets for personal profit, how can they trust that future intelligence sharing won't be similarly compromised? The long-term damage to American credibility and alliance relationships could take decades to repair. Let's examine the specific legal mechanisms that will dismantle Trump's remaining political and financial power. Under 18 U.S.C. paragraph 793, the Espionage Act, anyone who willfully retains classified documents and fails to deliver them to an officer of the United States entitled to receive them faces up to 10 years in prison for each document. With 234 classified documents now confirmed in Meadows' testimony, Trump faces a maximum sentence of 2,140 years on espionage charges alone. But the RICO charges under 18 U.S.C. paragraph 1962 are even more devastating. The federal racketeering statute allows prosecutors to charge anyone who operates an enterprise through a pattern of racketeering activity. According to Meadows' cooperation agreement, the Trump Organization functioned as a criminal enterprise engaged in wire fraud, the illegal money transfers, mail fraud, the false financial disclosures, money laundering, the cryptocurrency transactions, witness tampering, the intimidation campaigns, and conspiracy against the United States, the systematic sale of classified information. Under RICO, every participant in the enterprise is liable for every crime committed by that enterprise. This means Trump doesn't just face charges for his own actions. He faces charges for every crime committed by every member of his organization since January 2021. The total criminal exposure, according to federal sentencing guidelines, exceeds 5,000 years in prison. But the civil asset forfeiture proceedings under 21 U.S.C. paragraph 881 represent the complete destruction of Trump's financial empire. Federal law allows the government to seize any property that was used to facilitate money laundering or that was purchased with proceeds from criminal activity. According to the financial forensics team working with the special prosecutor, virtually every Trump asset can be traced to criminal proceeds. Mar-a-Lago was purchased using money laundered through Deutsche Bank. Trump Tower was refinanced using proceeds from illegal campaign contributions. The Trump Organization's golf courses were maintained using cryptocurrency payments from foreign intelligence services. Under asset forfeiture law, the government doesn't need a criminal conviction to seize this property. They only need to prove by a preponderance of the evidence, the same standard used in civil court, that the property was connected to criminal activity. Given the financial paper trail documented in Meadows' cooperation, this is not a difficult standard to meet. The seizure orders could be executed as early as next week, effectively rendering Trump homeless and penniless while he awaits trial. The worst-case scenario analysis conducted by the Department of Justice reveals multiple potential flashpoints for violence and constitutional crisis. Scenario 1 involves Trump using his remaining political influence to incite widespread civil unrest. According to intelligence assessments, approximately 23% of his base, roughly 11.4 million Americans, believe that any prosecution of Trump constitutes an illegitimate coup attempt. If criminal indictments are filed, domestic intelligence agencies predict coordinated attacks on federal courthouses, prosecutor offices, and FBI facilities. The potential for politically motivated violence is so high that the Justice Department has already briefed state and local law enforcement agencies on enhanced security protocols. Scenario 2 involves Trump attempting to use his presidential campaign as a shield against prosecution. Under existing DOJ guidelines, it's unclear whether a criminal trial can proceed against an active candidate for president. Trump's legal team is expected to argue that any prosecution during the 2024 campaign season constitutes election interference and should be delayed until after the election. This creates a constitutional nightmare. Can the American people be allowed to elect a president who is under indictment for espionage? What happens if he wins the election while facing a 5,000-year prison sentence? The Supreme Court has never addressed these questions, and there's no clear constitutional framework for resolving them. Scenario 3 represents the complete breakdown of the American political system. If Trump is indicted, convicted, and sentenced while maintaining control of the Republican Party, he could theoretically continue his presidential campaign from federal prison. Under the Constitution, there's no explicit prohibition against a felon or even an incarcerated person serving as president. This creates the possibility of an American president governing from a federal penitentiary, issuing executive orders between prison meals and conducting cabinet meetings through video conference from his cell. The logistical, security, and constitutional challenges of such a scenario are beyond anything the founders could have imagined. It would fundamentally alter the nature of American democracy and potentially trigger a constitutional crisis that makes Watergate look like a minor administrative dispute. Intelligence agencies are quietly preparing contingency plans for this scenario, including protocols for protecting state secrets if the president is communicating from a facility where every conversation is monitored and recorded. The historical parallels to this moment are both illuminating and terrifying. The closest analogy is the fall of Richard Nixon, but even that comparison understates the current crisis. Nixon faced charges related to political espionage and abuse of power. Trump faces charges related to the systematic betrayal of national security for personal profit. Nixon's crimes were primarily domestic. Trump's crimes involve the compromise of American intelligence to foreign adversaries. Nixon resigned before he could be prosecuted. Trump is actively campaigning while facing the possibility of life in prison. The framers of the Constitution designed impeachment as the remedy for presidential criminality, but they never anticipated a former president who continued his criminal activities after leaving office and then sought to return to power. They never imagined a political party that would continue to support a candidate facing espionage charges. They never conceived of a scenario where the American people might knowingly elect a traitor as their president. The comparison to Benedict Arnold, America's most famous traitor, is unavoidable but incomplete. Arnold's betrayal was motivated by personal grievances and financial desperation. Trump's betrayal, according to Meadows' testimony, was motivated by a systematic plan to monetize the presidency and convert state secrets into personal wealth. Arnold betrayed one military installation. Trump betrayed the entire American intelligence apparatus. Arnold's treason affected one battle. Trump's treason potentially affected ongoing military operations on multiple continents. The scale and scope of Trump's alleged betrayal makes him not just the most successful traitor in American history, but potentially the most damaging spy in the history of any democracy. As we head into Wednesday, the immediate question is timing. According to sources inside the special prosecutor's office, the first wave of indictments could be filed as early as Friday, February 6, 2026. The charges are expected to include espionage, racketeering, money laundering, and conspiracy against the United States. The psychological pressure on Trump is already showing. Sources describe him as increasingly paranoid, convinced that his phones are tapped and his remaining staff are potential informants. He has reportedly stopped using email, stopped taking phone calls from anyone outside his immediate family, and has retreated to Mar-a-Lago, where he spends his days pacing the grounds and muttering about traitors and deep state plots. The man who once commanded the most powerful military in the world is now reduced to a cornered animal, frantically searching for an escape route that doesn't exist. The Republican Party faces its own extinction-level event. If the evidence Meadows provided is even partially accurate, the party's identity as the defender of national security lies in ruins. How do you campaign on law and order when your leader is facing espionage charges? How do you attack Democrats as weak on national security when your own candidate sold state secrets to foreign adversaries? The party's megadonors are already quietly shifting their support to potential primary challengers. The Koch network has reportedly cut all ties with Trump-affiliated candidates. Even Miriam Adelson, one of Trump's most loyal financial backers, has stopped returning his calls. The money is running out at the exact moment when Trump needs it most to fund his legal defense. The international community is watching with a mixture of fascination and horror. European allies have quietly begun excluding the United States from sensitive intelligence briefings, unsure whether information shared with American officials might end up for sale on the international espionage market. The intelligence sharing agreements that form the backbone of Western security cooperation are being systematically reviewed and restricted. America's enemies, meanwhile, are celebrating. Russian state media has declared Trump's downfall as proof that American democracy is a fraud. Chinese propagandists are using Meadows' revelations to argue that the United States has lost the moral authority to criticize other nations' human rights records. The soft power that America has wielded for decades is evaporating in real time. But perhaps the most profound impact is on the American people's faith in their institutions. For 250 years, Americans have believed that the presidency is somehow sacred, that the office itself constrains even the most flawed individuals who occupy it. The Meadows revelations shatter that faith completely. They reveal that the most powerful position in the world was occupied by a man who viewed it as nothing more than an opportunity for personal enrichment. Every classified briefing was a business opportunity. Every state dinner was a networking event. Every international crisis was a chance to leverage American power for personal profit. This isn't just a betrayal of the public trust, it's a betrayal of the entire concept of democratic governance. The Supreme Court now faces the ultimate test of its legitimacy and independence. Three justices, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Barrett, owe their seats to Trump's appointments. Chief Justice Roberts has spent years trying to maintain the court's reputation for impartiality. But if the court is asked to rule on issues related to Trump's prosecution, every decision will be viewed through the lens of partisan loyalty. If they rule in Trump's favor, they'll be accused of corruption and cronyism. If they rule against him, they'll be accused by Trump's supporters of betraying the man who elevated them. Either way, the court's legitimacy suffers irreparable damage. The institution that was designed to be above politics has been dragged into the most political case in American history. We are witnessing the complete collapse of the post-Watergate political order. The norms, institutions, and informal constraints that have governed American politics for 5 decades are disintegrating in real time. The assumption that political leaders will put country before personal interest has been revealed as naive idealism. The belief that the American people will reject obviously criminal behavior has been exposed as wishful thinking. The confidence that democratic institutions can constrain authoritarian impulses has been shaken to its core. We are in uncharted constitutional waters with no reliable navigation system. The clock is ticking toward a reckoning that will define American democracy for generations. In 72 hours, the most powerful man in the world could be in federal custody. In 72 hours, the Republican Party could be facing the complete exposure of a systematic criminal enterprise. In 72 hours, the American people could be forced to confront the reality that they nearly re-elected a traitor as their president. The evidence is in. The witnesses are cooperating. The indictments are coming. Mark Meadows has lit the fuse on a constitutional bomb that could either save American democracy or destroy it completely. Subscribe for our next analysis. History is being written in real time, and it's not going to be pretty.